Welcome to Focus on B, the video series where I spent about 20 or so minutes playing and talking about a game that I've got some thoughts on, and this is Need for Speed Most Wanted. Come on, I had to do a video on this one. This is one of my favorite racing games of all time. This is one of everyone's favorite racing games of all time. It's in that big free of just the absolute classic mid-2000s racing games, up there with Burnout Free and Revenge, and also Flat Out 2, right? I think the reason why this game is so good is because it's a perfect storm. It does everything really, really well. Okay, no, that's a bit of an exaggeration. It has some flaws, but there's a couple things I want to talk about before I address those flaws. So, I noticed something. When it comes to the games I really like, I have a really hard time explaining why I like them so much, and I think it's because it's much easier to just point out obvious faults as opposed to positives that are just a little more abstract. Like, for example, the handling model. What's so good about the handling model in this game? Well, what do I even say? It's heavy. It's got, a nice sense of weight to it. That's just the same thing twice. I just said the same thing twice. There you go. I'm already being redundant. But I think what I like about it is the fact that I should really downshift. Yeah, I'm in manual, so I haven't played in manual in a while. Is the fact that it has a very nice, it feels kind of like an evolution of the one from Need for Speed Underground. And you know what's really interesting, actually? If you've played this beta version of the game you can find for the PS2 build specifically, the handling is actually very close to that of Underground 2. Now, for the final game, they've changed it up quite a bit. Then they ended up using this handling model for Carbon and also the Wii and PS2 version of Undercover. And this is probably my favorite, it's almost everyone's favorite kind of handling model for a Need for Speed game. Because, see, the thing about Underground's handling is it's a little bit slippy. It kind of makes sense for the first game and even the second game because there's a lot of rain. But here, everything's a lot more grippy and there's a lot of weight to the cars. But it's not obnoxiously heavy like it would be in something like Need for Speed Pro Street, I would say. Pro Street's handling isn't bad in the slightest. It's more so, I think, the way that game treats the camera that makes the handling feel weird. I know a lot of people think it's too jittery. I think it's mainly the camera. If you play using the first-person camera angle, it's a lot better, honestly. Although I haven't played Pro Street in quite some time. Maybe I'll do a video on it at some point. I'm not sure, though. Anyway, so what else is there about Most Wanted? The cop chases. So the cop chases are... they're obviously one of the highlights of the game. This was the first time the cops were in a Need for Speed game in over 2 years, because they were in Hot Pursuit 2, but then they weren't in Underground 1 or 2, and I totally get that. It wouldn't really make sense for those games as maps. I cannot imagine a police chase taking place in the Underground 1 or 2 worlds. It just wouldn't work. It's too cramped. All of the roads here are much wider, and that works really well for just creating these absolutely hectic pursuits. And something that I think Racevic brought up in his video on this game quite a few years ago was the fact that really, this game makes almost any other police chase or police implementation in any other racing game feel like a joke. Like an absolute joke. But the thing is, though, the cops in Need for Speed Most Wanted are really not incredibly intelligent. They're less fear, right? Like, First Encounter, Assault Recon, and they're more, I don't know, I guess the Combine from Half-Life 2, well, no, the Combine aren't stupid necessarily, but the level design doesn't always necessarily allow them to shine as much as they could. I'm going to do a video on Half-Life 2, don't you worry about it, so I'm going to be talking about that in quite some time. Oh, for fuck's sake, man, I thought I was about to evade them. They're persistent bastards, that's the thing. And, I'm going to be completely honest, though, I don't think that when it comes to just the pursuits or just the cops themselves on their own, there's really all that much that makes them stand out, more so compared to future games, or at least, well, in Carbon they're identical. It was literally a copy-paste job. In Undercover, I think the cops are a little more interesting to, like, their tactics are a little more different, they're a little more fun to evade. Here they're more action-packed, right? And then with future games, they felt a little bit almost gimmicky. I'm not sure, like, every Need for Speed game has a slightly different way to do that, to handle the cop system. With 2015 being, like, weirdly realistic, for one, you don't get any cop chatter at all. Here I've disabled the cop chatter so I can actually commentate, Thank you, Black Box, for putting a slider for that. But in 2015, there just is no cop chatter, apart from, like, you can hear their megaphone sometimes. You can actually pay the fee as well. You can actually pay a fine and have them stop chasing you, which is such a strange approach in a Need for Speed game. At this point, I'm just trying to evade and move on to the next event, because I'm doing the challenge series. Actually, this will bring me on to the progression system in the game, and here comes some of the things that are a little bit, in my opinion, kind of contentious about Need for Speed Most Wanted, and why, it's probably the reason why, despite how great this game really is, I haven't completed it many times. I've completed Undercover probably 5 times, I've completed Payback 3 times, I've completed 2015 once, I've never completed Pro Street, I think I've completed Shift 1 once, never completed Shift 2, I've completed Underground 1 plenty of times, never completed Underground 2. I've also completed Porsche Unleashed like twice. But I've never completed, no, I've completed Most Wanted only once, and it was quite recently when I just kind of made myself do it. Why is that? Well, I would say it's primarily because of the bounty system. See, in order to face a Blacklist member, it's not enough just to complete their events and some milestones. You also need to have a certain amount of bounty, which is accumulated, as you can see right in the top right corner, via police chases. Thing is, I'm not always in the mood to do chases, and I get that it's kind of the whole point of the game, and there's that risk-reward factor, because unlike in the challenge series where you just kind of drop in and do an event, oh, the menu is so empty about the music, though it has some really good ambience, though, gotta give it that. In fact, all the Need for Speed games have some really great ambience. There's these really cool, like, extended videos on YouTube you can find of just, like, Need for Speed World ambience. Not the game Need for Speed World, although I'm sure it exists for that game, too. No, I mean, like, for Underground 2 and Most Wanted, maybe even Carbon. A lot of really cool sounds to just listen to in the background. They really fit, like tire screeches and horns and all that stuff, right? Typical car noises, wind. But anyway, really great sense of just presence in the world. Shit, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so I don't always want to do pursuits, and that's like the whole point, and you have this risk involved with the fact that you can actually lose your car. That's not a factor in the challenge series, of course, but in the actual campaign, that is the driving force of the game's difficulty, really, because otherwise there would be no challenge. It's like, because you can actually game over. I don't know how many people notice, but you can legitimately lose all your cars, and that's it. I think in both this and Carbon, you even get like a jail cell sort of ending. It's just like a PNG. It's not like an actual animation of the guy getting put in a cell. No. They probably didn't have time to do that because EA being EA, they probably made them make this game in about 5 weeks. But hey, I mean, it's 5 weeks well spent. This is still a really great game, even though it clearly does show some rush signs, like signs of rushness, whatever you want to call it, crunch. That's generally how it is. Well, I find it interesting how, despite the fact that these games are so rushed, you were still able to come out so good. And I think it's more so, it's a testament to just, oh, fuck, wait. Fortunately, you don't get busted in these. Oh, you do. I thought I could be a cheeky one and reset, because if you don't know, I'm pretty sure most people notice, if you hit reset during a pursuit to stop it from being overpowered, which is something that they actually changed from Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. See, in that game, you can genuinely, or at least in the PC version, you can spam the reset button and get away with it. I'm not even kidding. That won me quite a few pursuits. Here you can't, though. Even in a race, I genuinely thought that I could get away with that, but I couldn't. That's unfortunate. So, anyway, where was I? Although I think it was a very smart move, though, of the developers to put the cops in the challenge series events, because imagine how boring it would be if it was genuinely just a time trial and nothing more. Although I find it interesting that the challenge series in this game is nothing but time trials and milestones. At least so far, I haven't done a single real race, which I guess makes sense because, well, one, time trials were actually not really a thing in the previous games. They kind of were. There was the occasional time trial in Underground 1, I think, and Underground 2 had events that had a time limit to them, so they were kind of like time trials. But yeah, I understand them also pushing the cops, but I definitely think that Carbon improved upon the challenge series. Like, if you're looking for a better arcade-like experience, then you probably want to play Carbon, actually, because it has way more stuff to do in the challenge series and goes through a lot more of the modes. Maybe I just haven't played enough, but I've been playing for a few hours now, and Oh, there it is. I do like how if you disable those transitions, you actually get like a really cool like flash to blue. Okay, don't get stuck this time, stupid face. There you go. Just go right past it. You know what else I feel like I should talk about? The looks, because yes, okay, we have the mid-2000s piss filter going on. But the truth is, I cannot recognize this game without it. You can literally go into the settings right now. Just go into the settings, hit the 2 key. Yes, the game does not go, without modding the game, which I haven't done, it can't go all the way up to my native monitor resolution, which is weird because Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 lets you do that just by changing a single config, but whatever. It still looks pretty good though, even at 1200p. It's not that, I mean, that's more than 1080p, kind of. I mean, it is. Well, it's not because the horizontal, whatever. But yeah, look, now the game, a lot of people would say objectively looks better right now. Well, objectively looks better is a bit of a, that doesn't really work because things that looks are entirely subjective, but that's a different matter. But clearly there's more color. It doesn't look like piss anymore. And yet I cannot recognize the game like this. Like, this is not Most Wanted to me. This looks like a modded version of the game. A lot of people nowadays will mod the game to look more like this with added enhancements, and that's totally cool. That's what's amazing about PC game mods. The fact that you can totally transform the way the game looks and plays and make it more modern, right? I mean, so many games have basically made HD remakes of themselves pointless by just having mods that turn them into HD remakes, and that's amazing. But this is not Most Wanted to me. I can't recognize Most Wanted without its look. I can still recognize Carbon without the blue, but I need the urine. You know, I need it to look like this. Alright, there you go. Now it's Need for Speed Most Wanted. Or at least now it's Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005, not Need for Speed Most Wanted 25, right? Like, that's how, again, most people would play it today, and that's totally fine. That's cool, because not everyone likes this look. It's a bit of an acquired taste. You really kind of, yeah, look, there's not a single race event here. It's all just milestones and toll booths. That is very odd. I mean, we're just going to keep doing milestones because that's what this game's mostly about, really, just doing races. But yeah, I think the look is completely justified, and there is still a variety in the way the game looks. There are different variants of the filter, right? Like, it doesn't constantly look just yellow. Sometimes it'll be a little more orange, sometimes it'll be a little bit gray. That's about it, come to think of it. There's really not that much variety, but still, I don't know, I really love the way this game looks. It has like there are some games that aesthetically are what I call evergreen. Well, not this game, it's yellow. But in a way that they kind of don't age, even though this is generally seen as dated in terms of the way a game would look. Like, no one would actually look at this and think, oh, this is modern, because not many games look like this. Well, some games will have it as an option maybe, or depends on the scenario in the game, they might put a bit of a color filter on it. Like tone mapping and stuff like that, or light maps, whatever you want to call them, or color maps, whatever. Like Night Dive Studios, actually, they did a really good job with the Quake enhanced version, right? The remaster. And some of the Dimensions of the Machine levels actually have, if you enable the color, like the color maps, whatever they were called, some of them will have a little bit of like a yellowness to them. Not a lot, but there's a tinge of that, and it depends on which area of the level you're in. And I think that's really, really sick. Why did I just do that? Hold on, I keep forgetting I have to hold back to reverse even when I go into reverse gear where you think you'd have to accelerate. Doesn't matter. So, yeah, I don't know, I think this game still looks really, really cool. And in my head, it's still kind of like a modern look, kind of like Race Driver Grid. Like, I cannot comprehend the fact that Race Driver Grid is now 18 or possibly 19 years old, depending on when this video goes up. Like, seriously, it's not a super new game, but it kind of still feels new. Although I would definitely have to say that Grid 2, I mean, obviously holds up better because it's newer and has a much richer color palette. But I don't know, I will never get tired of the way this game looks and the way it sounds as well. Now, for this video, of course, I've disabled all of the copyrighted music. Fortunately, EA's cool like that, and they let you just disable the licensed music but keep the rest, because the score, the cinematic score, like the music that was composed for the game is actually fantastic as well. But I swear to God, like, there's not a single missed track on the actual licensed soundtrack. Like, for as much as I will love most Need for Speed soundtracks, there will always be at least one that I like, one song that I don't really like all that much, genuinely. Like, from Underground 1, I don't love most of the soundtrack. Like, there are some songs that genuinely just kind of piss me off, honestly. Underground 2, I'd say that one's pretty much banger for banger. I know some songs lyrically haven't aged super well, but other than that, no, I can't really think of any tracks I'd particularly dislike, but here it's just up to the next level. Like, every single track is just perfectly chosen, perfectly selected, you know what I mean? You got fucking Avenged Sevenfold, you got Bullet for My Valentine, you got Disturbed. I don't know why everyone always uses, they used to, you know, with like memes and stuff, they would always use Disturbed Decadence as like the token heavy song from this game, when honestly I would argue the heaviest track here would probably have to be, also I just realized I have like almost no time left in the pursuit. I think the heaviest song is probably the instrumental version of One Good Reason by Celldweller. In fact, I would say after listening to the normal version of it, it's so much better as an instrumental. Like seriously, I know I have to give like Clayton Celldweller, like he's the guy who formed the band and as many other bands, like credit for, you know, what he's accomplished, and he's actually a really great musician. He's not like an amazing guitar player, but he doesn't have to be for his style of music. It's industrial. It's mostly just editing. And he admits that, and that's cool. Like, that's just how that kind of music is made. But man, I cannot stand to listen to his vocals on that particular track. And yeah, time's up. Okay, we're gonna have to do something else then. Oh no, I'm just gonna restart it, honestly. I'm just gonna keep playing. We've got 3 minutes left anyway. Industries, that's high resolution. Anyway, where was I? But yeah, I feel like his heavy vocals don't really work for that track. His clean singing is really good. I really love his song, his cover of one of his own songs from his other band, Awakening With You. Oh, that's fantastic. And he's got great arrangements, right? Really great musician. But fuck, man, One Good Reason is such a heavy guitar track, right? And yet the mix is really interesting because it's like super crunchy, but it sounds clean. It's not a clean tone, but what I mean is it's cleanly produced, very cleanly recorded. All the notes, like I can literally just listen to it and sing along with the notes of the guitar part, which is something I can't always do for, like, let's say Fear Factory or stuff like that, right? With some slightly less clear guitar tones. It's very transparent, and it did a really good job on that. But what else? Even the hip-hop tracks, you know, if you know me a little more personally, you might know that I used to be a lot more into that. Not so much anymore, but man, the tracks are still great. Like, honestly, In a Hood Near You, Do Your Thing, whatever the rest of I Am Rock, like, they're all great. They combine metal and hip-hop in a way that actually sounds cool and tasteful. Not in like a cringy new metal kind of Limp Bizkit sort of way, but in a very carefully used, it's like they selectively play, you know, okay, let's have a guitar riff here to make sense that you can build a cool song off of that with some really great production. You know, a lot of them will incorporate guitar parts, like riffs, in like a Linkin Park kind of way, but a little less so. Still, I don't know, I really love the way the music is produced in this game. Also, the drum and bass is really great. There's a couple drum and bass tracks for the races, and those are really cool too. Aside from that, though, that's the thing. Let's go back to how I started this video, where I talked about sometimes it's harder to describe things that you like about a game than what you don't, and that's because sometimes my likes of a game can be a little bit less concrete, I guess, more difficult to put into words. Like when it comes to something I dislike, like for example the bounty, I can just say, I don't want to collect so much bounty, and that's it. And it's like, okay, that's my problem. But what I like, it's like, well, why do I like the way the game looks? I don't know, I like yellow? Well, no, I don't actually love the color yellow, but I think the way this game looks in particular is really cool. The soundtrack, well, I like metal, and that's about it. It's like, okay, but other games have metal, and I might not like them all that much. It depends, right? The story? Oh, dude, the story is absolute cheese, and it's great. Like, it's not like an amazing narrative, but it doesn't have to be. It does its job of making you hate Razor and making you want to get your car back. And that's like the whole point, right? That's the whole story. And no, it's not Razor's car, it's your car. Razor's car is the Mustang, damn it. And that's it. That's all it has to do. Just sets up a little bit of motivation for the player. And because honestly, even though this is really fun right now, just doing challenge series events does feel a little bit empty, because I'm not thinking about, oh, I'm gonna get my car. I'm just a progression in general, just unlocking new cars, buying new cars, winning new cars. It's all about that. And also like how they changed the customization system so that you no longer really have to make, you don't have to make a rice rocket to progress. There's no star ratings anymore, it's just heat levels that you can decrease by modifying your car, but you don't have to go overboard. You just have to modify it just barely enough so that it decreases your heat level. And you can constantly keep your heat low, but you also actually want to keep your heat high on some cars that are like specific pursuit cars, so to speak, that you can just dedicate to nothing but pursuits. And, you know, sure, there's a higher risk involved with them because you might lose them because you're using them in pursuits, but still, that's generally how that system works. And it creates a very interesting choice. It's like, which one of these cars do I want to dedicate to a pursuit, right? Which one of these do I want to keep as like for longer? You might want to have just a dedicated race car or like a pursuit car and I lost again. Yeah, point is, it's a system that lends itself to a lot of interesting decision making made throughout the campaign. And that's why the progression is really great, despite my problems with the bounty system, of course. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Focus on B, the video series where I spent about 20 or so minutes playing and talking about a game that I've got some thoughts on. And this has been Need for Speed Most Wanted. 2005, Xbox, GameCube, pretty much everything.